Hey dudes and dudettes, it's Simon Hurley and welcome to another video. Now today I'm doing another card making process video and I created two fun Christmas cards using some stenciling and stamps from Simon Hurley Create. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Now for this first card, I'm going to be using the Window Maker stencil and I'm going to turn it into a really fun Christmas scene. So the Window Maker stencil is designed to create some really awesome large windows for the front of your cards, and you can see it kind of on the back as a guide. And this is really awesome for my stamp line because you can really create some awesome scenes with the different stamp sets and images if you'd like to. So I'm going to start off in the center of my card with blending out the first part of the stencil, and that's these large window sections. Now I'm doing this in yellow here, which is what I would usually do if I'm doing like the inside of a house, but that's going to get covered up later. I'm just using it as a starting guide. Now, with any of the maker stencils from my line, lots of the images are close together. So for the kind of shutter here, I've taped off some of the other sections just to not get ink in those areas. So I'm doing the shutters on either side of the window using Midnight Snack. And for the first layer of the shutter, I like to do it with a little bit of a lighter hand on my ink. And then I can go in with the second layer of the shutters to add a little bit of shading. Now for this, I'm going to use the exact same color, Midnight Snack, but I'm going in with a smaller detail blending tool, which is going to get into those smaller areas, and go in with a little bit more pressure to apply a more heavy-handed version of the color. So this way you don't need to have two different colors that match exactly perfect. This is a really great way to stretch your inks and get a lot out of just one color. So I'm doing it to both sides there, and then I'm going to create the frame of the window. I'm using a little bit of Gur, which is my brown color, and again I've taped off certain sections. And I'll start off with the top of the window frame here. And I'm just going in and adding a little bit of shading there. Now the reason why I love these stencils so much is because they're at a really great price point, but they can create lots of amazing effects like this and get shading with just one layer since you're using your inks to blend down. And now I wanted to let you guys know, you're going to want to clean off the stencil as you go. Some of that dark blue color was coming off on the yellow. Like I said, I'm going to cover it, but if you aren't going to add a second layer onto this, you'll definitely want to make sure your stencil is clean as you switch between colors. So then I'm going to do the bottom section of the window too to create a nice little windowsill here, and just by blending some of these areas. Now you can go as detailed or as simple as you want with this. It's done in all different steps, so you can really stop at whatever step you want to create different shapes of windows, or if you want to mask off the top half and just do a rectangular window, there's lots of different options. So once I'm done with all of that, I'm going to then go in with that same center portion of the window and trace this out just using a pencil. This is going to act as my guide to stamp and watercolor on, and the reason why I'm doing it in a separate layer is because I've done this before, and when you watercolor on top, sometimes the inks underneath bleed, and we don't want that to happen. So now I'm going in with the Caroling Squad stamp set. I absolutely love this one so much, and those fun little guys caroling, but here I'm just going to use that large, wonky kind of Christmas tree, which I think is so adorable. I've lined it up so the star goes in kind of the top section of the window, and then you get the tree kind of peeking in through half of the window. So we're creating kind of a house scene here, which I think is going to be so much fun. I'm going to throw over a layer of clear embossing powder and heat set that till it turns nice and shiny, and that's going to act as a really great border when you're watercoloring, just so nothing really bleeds and it makes it really easy to color in. So for the start of the tree, I'll show you just a quick look into my coloring here. I've added some Simon Hurley Create inks down onto my craft sheet here, and I've added water down onto the tree before I start coloring it in. That's going to allow the colors to kind of mix and blend really easily. I'll start off with a little bit of Psych to get a nice lime green kind of color in there to really brighten it up. And then I'm going in with colors like Later Gator and Fake Plant to really add some nice dark shading into there. And that Fake Plant really adds a nice green color and adds lots of depth and dimension. And I shade kind of wherever the tree meets the other layers, and that's going to give it some really nice dimension. Now for the outside window section, I'm just going to paint it in with a really light watered down version of Slippery When Wet outside the edges and fading it in towards the tree. And after I'm done with this, I'll also do a little bit of ink blending as well, so that'll kind of darken that outer section. Then I'm going to go around and cut right out along those pencil lines, and this is going to make it so that I can take those window sections and add them right on top of the ink blended window that we had earlier. So this just allowed me to stamp it really precisely and easily, and now I can line it up with the window and add it on top, and nobody ever knows that we did it in 2 separate layers, which is so awesome. There is the window once it's all finished. I'm just so in love with it, and now you can really use this window to make whatever scene you want, and here we turned it into a nice Christmas scene. Now, using that same window maker stencil, I've taken a little bit of craft cardstock and I'm going to ink blend through this with a little bit of gur. Now, when it comes to ink blending these bricks, I do it kind of randomly. I don't do the complete full pattern, and I think it looks better like this. And then I'm just going to go in with a very, very light hand. The lighter the better, actually, so that it kind of blends in with the background nicely and adds some of this brick pattern all over the card. Now, the window is going right in the center, so I don't need to worry too much about that, but this just creates a nice texture for the background and makes it look like it's on the side of a building. I stamped down Merry Christmas, added the whole thing together, and I just love this fun scene using that window maker stencil to create this Christmas card. Now for the second Christmas card, I'm using the Posh Poinsettia stamp set, and you can see this one is well loved. I've been using it a lot this Christmas season. So I'm going to add down the first image, which is the lined wreath, and I'll stamp it down with some jet black Archival ink, which is not going to bleed when I watercolor later. Then I'm going to go in with the second layer, which kind of looks like a blob. Some people told me it looks like the earth, but it really is to fill in that greenery portion of the wreath. Now I'm going to press down any empty areas to get out all the air bubbles before I stamp. That's just a fun little tip to make sure you get a really great stamped image. And then I'm going to start my stamping. First, I'm using Psych, and I'm going to stamp this down several times. Now, the reason I'm using a MISTI is so that I can do a little bit of shading, but if you want to, you can stamp this all in one go as well. Sometimes I've added a little bit of water too to get a nice watercolor effect, but today we're going to get this stunning shading. So I'm going in with a little bit of Later Gator, and my favorite way to shade is using a mini ink blending tool and going around to add the color down. This adds the color a little bit lighter down, but it blends in really well with the last layer and adds no harsh marks, which I love. So you'll see the layer is already building up with a little bit of that darker green color, but I'll continue this until I get the desired effect that I want. That's why I love using the MISTI stamping tool, so I can just keep stamping in the exact same spot and building up the layer. And you can see it just gets darker and darker and creates this stunning shading effect. Now for the last layer, I'm going just right around the outer edge, and here's another way you can do it. You can add down the ink with your ink pad and then take your blending tool and blend it out. Now here I'm using a little bit of fake plant to really darken up that edge, and there you can really see that blending comes to life. Now there's a little bit of spotted areas here and there. I added that texture into the stamp when I created it, so you get that cool wreath effect where it's had that nice texture instead of just a solid stamping. But I love that dimension and shading you can get. And then with my inks, if you're using the Simon Hurley Create ones, all it takes is a little bit of water and you can clean it off with no staining, which I just love. Now there's no stamp for the poinsettias because I figured you can easily go in and just watercolor these. So again, I'm doing the same thing that I did earlier, kind of flooding the little poinsettia with a little bit of water to get the colors to mix and blend. Then I'll start off by going in with a little bit of bee sting to get that bright red color in there and water that out. And these are fairly small, so you don't need to do lots of detail with this. And then I'll go in with some Game Over and add a little bit of darker red shading, but these images are so small and quick and easy to color in. Now to do the background, I'm going to go in with a little bit of Clear Skies ink and a blending brush. And I'm just using the edge of this blending brush to add a little bit of shading to the background. Now I do this very lightly with a light hand. I didn't mask off the wreath. All I did was kind of go right around it and leave a little bit of a halo right around the wreath. I didn't want to mask off right to the edge because I wanted this kind of glow and white edge around the wreath. I kind of find that it makes it stand out from the background a little bit more, so it's less work for you, but it also makes it pop off the card. Now once I've added that color down, I'm going to go in with the stained glass stencil, which I love. It was just released and it's got so much detail. And then I'm going to go in and add down more shading on top using the exact same color and only a little bit more pressure, which will create a nice tone-on-tone blended effect. And I just love the texture and dimension that that adds. I'll add down the sentiment that says Happy Holiday from our home to yours, and I just love how this card turned out with that fun stamped wreath with lots of shading and the background that we created. Alright guys, I hope you really enjoyed this video as much as I loved creating it. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure to hit that subscribe button down below so you never miss another card making and crafting video like this one from me. Also, I have a phone number. I'm going to leave it on the screen right now so you guys can text me. I love to chat with you guys one-on-one there, as well as give you sales, deals, and let you guys know when I upload a new video. Alright, without further ado, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!